Hi, everyone, and welcome to Spirit Focus with Robert Painley. Thanks for joining us this week. We're going to start off real quick here with a couple of huge thank yous. Thank you to Ruth and to Terry and to Deb for teaching Mark and I how to fish again. This is the first time I'm taking myself live, and I think I see a little live thing up in the corner, which means we are. So that's a good thing. So thank you very much to all of them for getting us up and operational and trying to figure out what we need to be doing here. And so that we can come live a little bit more quickly, easily, and efficiently in the future. So I do want to have a talk about a couple of things right off the bat. One, we were going to do a different show, and last week I did say that we were going to have a guest that was going to give a firsthand account of his experience with spirit and a haunting that he had in his home. Unfortunately, there were some personal issues there, family issues that were very serious, and that could not happen this week. So we will make that a future event. Which is why I kind of scrambled a little bit to do what we're going to do this evening. So I decided at that point I didn't want to cancel the show. So I wanted to take the opportunity to move forward and maybe just take a throwback to Robert's Honda Pajama Party, where this all began months and months ago now, and talk a little bit about some other events that have happened, particularly as it relates to my family, because I'm not the only one in my family that has a gift. It shows up in various forms in various siblings and my nieces and nephews. I don't know so much about the older relatives because they didn't talk about it a whole lot, except for my mom at the end before she passed about 5 years ago. I did find out about her gift, and I think I'll get another show. Go into that a little bit more then. But welcome to the show. So we got a couple of thank yous out there. I also want to say, because I always forget to tell people, but if you do want to contact me, please feel free to do so. You can reach me at rapainley@gmail.com. You can go onto my website, which is just pull up Robert Painley Medium. You can reach me or contact me through Instagram as well at Robert Painley Medium. So if you want to reach out, I do private readings. I do a lot of hauntings. Which obviously we talk about all the time. I have several this week. I had several that we talked about on last week's show. So the readings, and if you want something quick or fast, we can do that as well. But typically when I do a reading, particularly here in South Florida, it's a 2 to 4 hour event. When I'm doing it by Skype or by FaceTime or something, I usually try and stick to about an hour, but they usually wind up being an hour and a half or 2 hours. So let me know if you want me to do something. If I can help you in some way, please let me know. The other thing I want to announce tonight, it'll be coming out in a different format shortly, but since I have this platform tonight, a good friend of mine, Rosie Shapiro, who had a show called Angels Among Us on TLC, she's been doing Zoom events. She's just had her third one this past weekend. They're fantastic events, and they're so interactive, and Rosie is so wonderful the way that she presents different topics for each one of these Zoom episodes, these Zoom events. She's amazing, and I know Rosie now for more than a year, very personally. But before that, we really didn't know each other that well at all. And we'll tell the story when we had the event together. But she is going to feature me on an event that she's going to have on September 13th. So please join us. It's going to be a Zoom event, and you can find out all the information probably within the next week or so at rosieshapiro.com and get your tickets then. And all of that information will be out there. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that now, but we're going to do some giveaways, probably some readings live on air with Rosie and myself doing them. And I'll give you more information about that as we get closer to the event. But I did want you to circle the date on your calendar because it's going to be coming up fast. I'm actually going to go to New York, and I'll be with Rosie in person to do this event. So we've got some stuff to give away, and it's just going to be fun and have a good time and have a talk about healing and do some good prayer work and some good healing work from Rosie. So I think it's going to be a fun event, and I'm looking forward to it with great pleasure. And can't wait to get on the road and get up there and have this wonderful event and share it with all of you because I think it's going to be fantastic. So yeah, on to bigger topics of today, of things that we want to discuss regarding hauntings. Again, this is usually kind of my forte. Usually there's other people who do a lot of readings and do things of this nature. There aren't a whole lot of people that I know. There are a couple of people on this network who do them. I know Terry does them, and some other people have done hauntings. Rosie does, but I don't know a lot that go spend that kind of time at a home. A lot of people that I know are more psychics and psychic mediums that will do readings, do home cleansings, that sort of thing. I mean, I do all of the above, but a lot of people are sent to me from people who don't do that type of work. So in that regard, I kind of want to talk a little bit today about how spirit has affected my family. Because obviously with myself, I'm going to kick back here a little bit. By the way, since we're doing kind of a retro Robert's Haunted Pajama party, there is a cocktail involved in it. So Cuba Libres are on the menu for the night. So one of the things that I do want to talk about, in families, I've found that a lot of what happens with spirit tends to run in families. And I know from Rosie, it's in her family. It has been, and other mediums here that are on this network do have that run in a vein, and it's kind of a common thread. So if you have a gift, it's very typical that either a sibling or a parent or somebody or an aunt and uncle would have had this gift as well. So kind of look to them if you can. I grew up not knowing about others in my family having a gift or being sensitive to spirit. I wish I would have known and would have talked to them, but I was so afraid that they would thought I was crazy, and I didn't talk to them about it at that time. So I really want, if you have it or you have a child, listen to them again, because again, you may feel that you've had a gift, even if you're empathic. The gift doesn't have to be the same from family member to family member. And my mom was incredibly empathic, and she when I was having a bad day, she would call me. She knew if I lost a job or something, I would get a call. I'd be in Atlanta. She was back in Cleveland, and she would give me a call, and something's wrong. What's wrong with you? She just knew. And, she could tap in more than that, but she didn't tell me until later in her life that she could do that. Actually, almost on her deathbed, that she could do much more. But so I kind of get this from my mom's side of the family. So my mom had the gift. Her mother had the gift. It's at the Hungarian side of the family, on that side of the German side of the family. But I think this comes kind of more from the Hungarian side. But it's been passed down. And now, so I have this gift. I do have siblings. And I'm not going to give away a whole lot of private information unless they want me to. But I did talk to my sister yesterday, and she said it'd be okay to share some stories with her. So I do have my sister Lynn, who's a school teacher in Ohio, and she too has had interesting experiences all her life. And those experiences have taken the form in dreams for her, and she never really understood what was happening. So I'm going to kind of give a bit of a history here. I started seeing, again, when I was 4 years old. My earliest memories are of seeing spirit in the woods and going and interacting and having that interaction and seeing full apparitions my entire life. So it wasn't strange for me, but I knew I couldn't talk about it. But I came to find out only relatively recently, within the last maybe 2 years, where my sister was having dreams. And she was having dreams that were very, very vivid for her. And they were interesting dreams because they were dreams where she would be someplace and she would like watch people walk by, but she would be standing still, and she would still watch all of this happen. She was like a spectator, but she would always also see maybe a spirit in the background that also was like in the same time frame that she was. So hard to explain. But imagine that if you're, where you are in your home right now, imagine that there you would see a bunch of people flipping by you, very rapidly, and they couldn't see or interact with you, but you could see one person focused off on the other side of the room that was staring at you, knew that you were looking at them and could communicate with them. And this is what she would see sometimes in the school, in her home, and other places that she would go, and she would be interact with these in her dream. And so she finally, obviously, she knows what I do. And when I started doing more of this type of work, we've been talking more and more openly about it. And she told me about her dreams. And I told her about what the dreams were and what I thought that they meant and what was happening in these dreams, that she was actually having, astral projecting and actually interacting with spirit in her dream state. And when I told her that, I asked her if she had any signs. She said, well, I always have one of these dreams when I have a severe headache. And I said, that's your sign. So anytime that you have a severe headache, I want you to focus now on that headache, focus on it, that they're trying to communicate with you. And then when you go to sleep, be prepared to have one of those dreams and be able to interact with spirit better. And she did. And that first time that she did that, she was actually able to talk and have a conversation with the spirit that she had in a hallway. She wasn't actually there at school. This was the dream state, but she was in her school. She was at, I think at the door of her classroom, if I remember the story correctly. And she saw a young woman with a small child on a set of stairs across the way from her in the dream. And it was telling her that she wanted to be remembered, that she wanted to be remembered, that she wanted to be remembered. This kind of going back and forth. And when she woke up from that dream, she was able to feel satisfied that she was actually able to communicate with the spirit, and it gave her a big sense of satisfaction that she actually had. And I told her from that point on, now that spirit knows how to get a hold of her, they have a route and they have a way, to take the headache away and just be able to figure out how to get into that dream state without the headache, and put yourself, because the headache actually comes from the frequency that they're trying to get her on. So you may find that sometimes you're going to get, obviously tinnitus is a serious issue, but sometimes most mediums I know, myself included, will sometimes get ringing in the ear with this type of activity, and I can't quite know what's going on. I'm not hearing anything in particular until I connect. Once I connect, the ringing stops, and I've got a clear path to spirit. So if you're getting that type of ringing in your ear, it may very well be spirit that's trying to communicate with you. Try to tap in, try to figure out how to do that. And I find that telling people in their dream state is easier. Obviously, protect yourself, make sure that you're safe. But it's an easier place for spirit to go and for you to get there as well, and kind of meet halfway, as it were, to try to get the messages that they're trying to talk to you about. Anyway, so with my sister and the stream, I told her after this that they now have an avenue to her. And once that happened, she was probably going to start to get more dreams more frequently, and have more intense interactions with spirit of all kinds. And within 2 days, she was pulling up to a bank, and she pulled up to the bank teller, and she was the person right next to the window. And so the person was on the other side. You could see through the window that there was nobody standing at the window. And she just heard all of a sudden through the speaker, "Hi, mommy." And it was clear as a day, and she didn't know what it was, and it kind of startled her. And about 10, 15 seconds later, the teller made it to there and just talked to her like nothing was going on, but there was nobody there. There were no children, nothing else to do this. And since then, she's had more vivid dreams, and hers always now occur. So the sign that she gets now is that when there's a rocking chair, because typically in her dreams, when she gets into that state, when she puts herself into that sleep state, and she may see like an empty rocking chair, and the chair will start to rock back and forth in her dream. And then sometimes it stays where she doesn't see anybody, and she may see a spirit off to the side in a different place in an empty room. Usually she tells me it's an empty room, but it's always a rocking chair involved. And sometimes the rocking chair will be there and it slides toward her, or somebody will be in that rocking chair. So there's always something that happens that involves this, and she knows because of the symbol of the rocking chair that she's about to encounter spirit in some way. And since then, she's actually been privileged enough to encounter a spirit that needed help crossing over. I had kind of instructed her that this might happen and what to do if it happens. So, and she did so. So, and she felt amazing having done it. So she is burgeoning as a medium. She's accepting her gift. She was afraid of it. She didn't understand the dream she was having for years, but it's just talking with another medium, talking with somebody. I find that I work with a lot of burgeoning psychics and mediums, people who don't know about their gift or are afraid of their gift, a lot of clients wind up coming to me because of that. So I do, I'm an intuitive life coach for a reason, because people who need that type of coaching and guidance, so they don't have to go through the wondering, feeling that they're crazy or whatever, have some guidance on how to get there and how to better utilize their skill set and understand their skill set. Again, not everybody's skill set is going to be the same. My sister's is much different, but she's on a journey. It may increase to a different level. I do have a niece who sees the way that I do. I started obviously seeing spirit in the woods when I was very, very young. She sees them the same way I did. So I think that our gifts are very parallel. She's young, so she's not developing her gift at the moment. She's got teenage interests involved, which is fantastic for her. And it will go on its own pace. And when she's ready for it, spirit will be ready as well. So those are two people in my immediate circle, and my third with my mom, who's now passed, that had this type of ability. Since my mom passed 5 years ago, my dad, I want to try and be careful here a little bit, because I don't know, I haven't talked to my dad about what I could share and what I can't share. But I'll suffice to say at the moment that there has been activity associated at the house since my mom's passing. Some of it is my mom, some of it is because where I grew up there, because I was incredibly sensitive and saw, because my sister is, because my mom was, and still is, but in a different form. All of those spirits were comfortable coming to the house, and there is a lot of energy around that home. So since my mom's passing, there have been I'll say moaning and crying of spirits out in the living room that my dad will hear on occasion. The car out in the garage that nobody else drives, my dad's been out there when all the windows and all the doors have been open completely to the vehicle. And there's no way that would happen. And he's heard some things. Again, I don't want to get too particular unless my dad gives me permission to share some of his stories. But let's just say there's a lot of activity that goes in the house. My mom makes her presence known because there's a mantle, and there's a clock there that her picture is next to, and the clock's never worked since I was a teenager. That was a long time ago. And that clock will start to move, or things will happen in the house that let her presence be known. And it should be comforting, and it is comforting to my dad. My dad's not afraid of the activity that's going on there. Some of it does bother him when you walk out there and all the doors to the car are open for no reason. That's a pretty powerful entity that's doing that type of work. So depending on what's going on, obviously try and tap into it. If you have the doors opening, you don't understand, don't know what it is, please contact the medium or psychic to try and find out. In that case, I would contact the medium if you do have that type of activity where things are moving, because that's a pretty powerful entity that can be doing that type of work. Now, before I go into some stories here, I do have a haunting coming up tomorrow where I will share the outcome of this maybe next week before next week's show. But the haunting that I have tomorrow involves a few people, roommates in a home, and they're having a lot of negative activity at this house. So much so that they called me yesterday. They've never met these individuals before. They called me yesterday at 5 o'clock in the evening last night. And I'm uncomfortable with that because usually, again, spirit tells me what to do before I get to a home. And since I didn't have that advantage, I didn't feel that I was prepared to go to the home that quick. And tonight I have the show, so I couldn't do it this evening. So the earliest I could get there was tomorrow. But I will let everybody know what happens with that one, because this one, while I was talking to them on the phone, they're a little old lady who was probably in her 90s or so, appeared in the bottom right-hand corner of a large mirror that I have in the living room, and it's going to be associated with that energy in some capacity. I don't know in what capacity yet. When I open up tomorrow and I'm protected, then I'll go there and find out what it is. But I'm waiting for tonight, because usually always the night before I go someplace, I get the dream of what is there. Sometimes it's not the world's greatest thing that I see, but they come to me in my dream state. So I'm prepared when I see it or encounter that energy tomorrow, that I'm well prepared for. So I thank Spirit for doing that for me, because I don't like surprises. I've never been big on surprises. So I am looking forward to tonight's stream, and I will share that story, the outcome, on next week's show. So let's get started with some ghost stories. I told you a little bit about how it's affected my family. I've got more stories there. I don't know how comfortable the rest of my family is with sharing a lot of those stories. So I'm going to get to some other stories that I've experienced by myself, and things that I have experienced with Mark while we've been traveling and that sort of thing. So this is my list for tonight was this in some capacity. So I just wrote down 4 things because I think that they were important stories that I've never really told before. One of them is a challenging story for me to tell. And I'm gonna, by the way, if anybody has a question, I forgot to do this, but I'm gonna get on Facebook here at the moment and make sure that I can see any questions that you may have while we're doing this. So if you have any questions for me while we're doing this, I'll be able to look at the questions in real time and get back to you. So the first story I want to talk about is shockingly enough, I'm old enough that there was somebody before Mark who was in my life in a very significant way. And we were together for 5-6 years before he succumbed to cancer. And during the time that we were together, I'm just going to say that the relationship with the family was relatively contentious for a variety of reasons. And they had to do with the gay issue. They were lovely, wonderful people. I just don't think the exposure to him being gay and myself being gay and being a couple set very well in that type of environment or with their life history. So it was challenging, particularly back when this happened. We were talking, back in the 90s when being out was not as accepted as it is today. Not that it's incredibly accepted today, but it was less so then. And when he finally had cancer, and it was a long process of surgeries and strokes and other things that led to his ultimate death. We weren't together at the end because he could be taken care of much better in his family environment than us trying to go it alone together, about 1,000 miles from where he lived. So it was the right decision to make, and he was the one that had to make that decision to get us to that point. So the last 2 years or so of his life were spent traveling back and forth to see him and do that, but we were no longer living together at that point while he was going through multiple surgeries and had a stroke and needed the physical therapy and all that sort of thing. So long story that I won't share because it was a horrible time in my life. So I wasn't there when he finally passed. And because I wasn't there, and I do what I do, it was horrendous, the energy that I got. I woke up, I was with Mark, and I woke up one night crying at 3 o'clock in the morning, just completely sobbing. And I didn't know why. It was just sad because what I saw was a woman standing next to a large crypt and just pointing at this crypt. I mean, just using the finger and pointing at this crypt. And the feeling of dread and horror that I had about this was such that I got up out of bed and I came into where I'm broadcasting from now, into the extra bedroom and / office, and had to look him up, had to find out what's going on. And it turned out that actually his mom had passed. And she was the one that was in my dream next to the crypt. And she came and she was pointing down at my ex's crypt. But she was letting me know that she was sorry. She was sorry for how, what her opinions were while she was on this plane, of how that interfered with my relationship and our relationship with my ex. And it was lovely. I made an agreement with her at that point, and I'm not going to give out names now because I don't think it's fair to the family, since there's some aspects of this story that may be construed in a bad way, or that I'm being insensitive to them. That's why I'm being a little bit cryptic here. But I think that it's important that people know that she came through, and I forgave her. She was asking for forgiveness for some of the things that she had done and said, and her actions. And I had to admit too, I too apologized, because, because of the interaction and the stress and things that went on. It was not the greatest, obviously, relationship in the world. It could have been better if times were different, if people were raised differently, if people had a different worldview. It would have been a different circumstance. So since it wasn't, the circumstances were what they were. But coming to me for forgiveness and asking for it, and just granting and giving that forgiveness and asking for forgiveness myself, I felt such a sense of relief and pressure. And I made an agreement with her at that time that because of what she did and how I felt about that, and how it affected my life and her son's life and her life, quite frankly, to an extent, and her extended family's life, that I would tell this story someday. And it will be in greater detail, but I'm going to tell this story because I think it's important for people to know. Because I think from her perspective, it's important that people understand how your actions affect others. And when you cross, I'm going to suggest here that you live your life in a way that you don't have regrets, and that you need to ask for forgiveness. Your crossing will be so much easier if you get to that life review without a ton of regret and a ton of missed opportunities and sadness and hatred and all of these emotions that don't really serve you at all on this plane or at all on the next. So if you can do something to try to mitigate those aspects of your life, to just try to be more understanding, even in the current political position that we're in here, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have your political opinions and fight for what you believe and that sort of thing, but do try and have empathy for people who may have a different opinion. That should not automatically lead to hate. It should automatically lead to try to build a bridge in some capacity. You may never get there together to have an absolute bridge, but at least be open to the thought process that they are human beings with a differing opinion than yours, and try to do what you can to find a common ground. And there are a lot of people that I'm no longer friends with, since for a while now, because we have different opinions on immigration and gay rights and Black Lives Matter and all these other topics that are going on, or the coronavirus and the response to the coronavirus. So it doesn't mean that I dislike or hate these people. It just means that I have a different opinion, and I can fight for my opinion, and that's okay to have an opinion. But make sure that it's an informed opinion that you're getting, that you're not going into it wholeheartedly just because somebody else believes something that you believe it. Use your mind, use your intuition, use your common sense to come up with what you believe to be right, and I will stand behind you in your right to say that every day. Okay, so but as it pertains to the story, I do want to share her story and how that caused pain, and it was a lovely moment to have with a spirit who was asking for that forgiveness. When you have a reading, and there is sometimes hard feelings or feelings that go unsaid at an end. For example, during COVID, I personally know 3 people through clients who have passed because of COVID, and they're looking for answers to why they have passed and what was happening at the end. What was their thought process? You don't want to be in a situation where you don't, or weren't in a situation where you could make sure that the person knows who's going in, that they were loved and you did care about them, and that they had the chance to say that as well. So try not to have any regret. Try to make sure that you don't leave any hard feelings there. Nothing in this world is important enough to make sure that you maintain a series of bad feelings towards somebody. Try to work it out, or at least forgive, move on, because in that forgiveness, you're going to be able to, if you can forgive them and forgive yourself, don't harbor that anymore. Just move on. There's no reason to harbor on ill feelings. If people aren't serving you in your life, move on from that situation. It's okay to move on. You don't have to like everybody. You don't have to agree with everybody. But what you shouldn't do is let your dislike or a hatred or whatever ruin your life, because you're not hurting them with your feelings. You're only hurting yourself. So try to figure out a way that you can kind of come to terms with yourself, your own actions, to forgive yourself enough to live a happier life than living one based on fear and regret and hatred or any of these other emotions that won't serve you in your life. Okay. So let me see if there's any questions before we get started. It doesn't look like it. Hi, Stacy. How are you? Carol, how are you? Angie, nice to see you. Nice to have you all. Just reading through. Thank you all for joining. There are some people that I know that are going to watch us in Restream. And just for one person, there's actually two people in particular that live together. You know who you are in Miami. There is a man that came and was in my bedroom last night that was hovering above my bed. This is for you. And this is somebody that you have not wanted to see in your house, that you've been trying to get rid of. I told you that he would continue to come. He didn't come to you this time, he came to me. But there is something happening in your neighborhood. You have somebody in your neighborhood who's trying to create a problem for you. And he's kind of just wants to give you that warning. So just letting you a heads up, this is a female that lives one or two houses from you. She's really trying to cause problems. So just stay away from that situation if you can. If you need to confront it head on, and don't try and move around this situation. It needs to be addressed head on. And he's there to help you and give you this guidance and this warning that this is happening. So little message there for, you know who you are in Miami, just letting you know. Before we get started, let's see if there's anything else. Okay. And you're absolutely right, Carol. Thank you for your comments. So the first story that I want to talk about, other than my ex's mom, I want to talk about there's some experiences that I have had, other ones that most of these stories kind of involve a graveyard. And I think I talked in Robert's Haunted Pajama Party that spirits, by and large, don't typically hang out in graveyards. It's not a place to hang out. Sometimes there are spirits and stuff there, but it's not what people sometimes anticipate, that it's all full of spirits and all kinds of energy going on. There can be a lot of energy, because anytime you have that type of deep sorrow and sadness, and that can leave an energy imprint on an area. And you have now a cemetery where there's a lot of that energy imprint someplace. You're going to have sometimes challenging energy in that spot. But most of the time when you're there visiting a cemetery, the people that you're going to see come there to see you, because you are remembering them in that moment. You're in a pensive thought process that moment. You're being reverent, you're being prayerful. And it lends itself to have those spirits come through in that place. They can do the same thing in your home. But if you got in that same state that you were at the cemetery in your home, you could have that same experience. So it's not particularly the cemetery, it's not the location itself that's important here. It's the feelings, emotions, and the reverence and the intention that you're throwing out at that moment that brings them to you to try to comfort you in your sorrow, or maybe just to interact with you to try and give you some information or something of that nature. So, but people who live around cemeteries will sometimes get a ton of energy, and you will, particularly if you're sensitive. So, but by and large, the places that I get the most energy happen to be places like military graveyards, or like Gettysburg, where they had huge internments, if that, of spirits and sometimes unknown people a lot of people who died very quickly may not know that they have passed, haven't moved on. So that type of activity in those types of locations is huge, because they just haven't moved on. Some of them just don't know that they're there. And I've had a lot of those experiences. When last time I was in Gettysburg, there's a particular place in Gettysburg, I believe it's Gettysburg, called Devil's Den. And in that area, we were coming up over a ridge, I was with Mark at the time. We were coming up over a ridge, and you could feel the souls coming with you. I don't know if everybody can, but because I do what I do, I did. And I know a lot of mediums who do the same thing. It's very uncomfortable place for me to be, and a lot of mediums feel the same way. That's not a place I'm comfortable because I feel the sorrow, the longing, the death, the agony, the despair, sometimes even great love, because that's the last thing that they're thinking of before they pass. But all of those things come to light in those types of locations. So it's very challenging as a medium, or even quite frankly, as an empath. If you're empathic in some way, you will get headaches. Your ears will be ringing. You may even get sick from the experience if you're there too long in that type of environment. So if you know that you're empathic, please build up your immunity before you go. Build up what you feel and what you sense before you do that, because it can affect your health. I'm going to stick on that subject of empaths for a second. If you are empathic, and empaths are people who are incredibly sensitive to other people's emotions. You can pick up on their emotions, to somebody else's emotions very, very easily. People who are empaths tend to get people that gravitate to them, to tell their problems to empathize with. And what happens as an empath is you wind up with a lot of energy vampires, people who kind of latch onto you and give you all their dirt, because you kind of accept it. You give off that energy of being accepting and being helpful, but you're taking on other people's dirt. They leave you feeling better because now they've told you all their problems and all their worries. They leave feeling better, but now you're stuck with all that energy a lot of times. And you need to get rid of that energy, because you can't continue as an empath to take on negative energy or I call dirty energy in a way, because it just continues to build up. And what would happen if you had a house that you never cleaned? It wouldn't function well. It would be prone to having vermin or disease or something grow and fester in that environment. And you don't want to be in that environment. So make sure that if you are empathic, that you are cleansing yourself when you can. Do salt scrubs, get in the ocean, ground yourself. Do all of these things that make sure as an empath, and try to mitigate those energy vampires in your life. I mean, it's okay to listen to people's problems, but try to figure out a way to compartmentalize those problems where you're not taking them on in a personal nature or in a personal way. You don't want to do that to your own health, your own body, and your own soul. I know that in Rosie's session on Sunday, she did talk a lot about the physical body and keeping that healthy and keeping fit, and how that also helps. It is your temple, and you need to keep that as healthy and fit as you do your mind, as you do your soul, and all of these other aspects of your life. There needs to be balance. So if you're in a path, please do protect yourself and do the things that are necessary to cleanse that energy from you. And I think that's about it. If you have a question on being an empath, so Carol Ann's saying that yes, Gettysburg was hard for her as well. She felt the sorrow and the pain, and she had to leave. Absolutely. I've been to, now I'm a Civil War buff and a Revolutionary War buff, and I've been to Bull Run and Gettysburg and Richmond and Andersonville and all these battle sites and internment camps and other places. And I don't know why. I mean, I love going to them from the historical aspect of them. But I also find that when I go, I have to cross people. I do run into a lot of souls when I'm there, and it's not like a general thing, but I usually run into one or two souls while I'm in a place like this that need help. So if you are gifted in some way that you can work with souls in this way, please figure out a way that you could go ahead and help these souls if they come to you. I know that it's tough and challenging sometimes, but it is the right thing to do. But I too, Carol, have actually had to leave places because the energy was just too much to take. And that happened in Williamsburg. That's happened in, I'm trying to think of other places that's happened at. But Williamsburg sometimes is, the town of Williamsburg itself is, but Yorktown was challenging. I've been to Native American sites and some other things up in Virginia. The original settlements up in Virginia. It's just some interesting energy. And as a medium, try to go to these places, because I think that you will get a lot from them. Just kind of protect yourself. And if it's challenging for you and you can't, or you feel it start to drain you, just go ahead and leave and get out of that area. Okay. But Gettysburg. So the last thing that happened in Gettysburg, Mark and I, we went to a pub, and this pub downtown, and we were downtown eating dinner. And I actually had to, halfway through the dinner, you know, I'm getting older, so I actually had to go to the bathroom halfway through dinner. And as I walked up the stairs, I felt uncomfortable and went into the restroom, closed the door, and the lights dimmed. And I felt super, super uncomfortable all of a sudden. And I turned around, and there was a woman standing in the men's bathroom. And you could tell that she was wearing late 19th century garb. And she just was staring at me, just staring. There was no message, no conversation, nothing, just staring at me. I'm used to spirits talking with me, so it's disconcerting for me when they're not interacting. And then I thought, well, okay, maybe this is just residual energy. And as I went to move, she moved as well. So we were interacting with one another. I tried to get to the door, but I had to kind of go by her a little bit. And I just felt I couldn't go anyplace. I just had to stay where I was. No message came through at all. Didn't know what the reason was for her being there. We did find out later on that there was a ghost that haunted this place. And this, what was the men's bathroom now, used to be the women's bathroom. And apparently this woman had passed in this place, and it was a hotel at one time, in some capacity. And she had passed in not a great manner. And she just felt my energy and felt a need to appear. And it wasn't really great energy, I have to say. This wasn't a loving spirit in any way. It felt very protective, very, I hate to say dark, because dark's a bad word. It just felt very unwelcoming, unfriendly, from a spirit perspective. Never did anything, never said anything. But even I didn't know that was going to happen when I got there. I wasn't warned in advance, so it freaks me out too, even doing what I do, when sometimes this stuff happens. And I went back down to the table and told Mark, and it was one of those things where, wow, that happened. So I told the story before too, about the shoe shine and the having a head, kind of a guy with no face that was walking down the hall. So I've had a lot of experience in these types of places. I don't like them a whole lot, and they're creepy. Sometimes I've run into nice spirits, but sometimes, a lot of times, I run into these spirits that just aren't very welcoming to people who they know can see them, and try and want to scare people for whatever reason. This time I didn't find out what that was, but sometimes they just want the location and space to themselves and don't want to let people around it. Just want to be kind of left in peace to their own devices. Let's see. Checking for questions. Let's see. I wanted to get to a whole bunch of things today, and it looks like we've got 15 minutes left or so. So I don't think I'm going to be able, if anybody has any questions, if you want me to pull cards for you, send a question, send something here. I'll go ahead and see if I can get that in before the end of the show. The other stories that I kind of want to talk about tonight are the Andersonville. I think I talked about Andersonville on another show. If you haven't been to Andersonville, I would like you to go if you're a history buff. It was a concentration camp in this country for Union soldiers in the Confederate States of America during the Civil War. It's located outside of Macon, Georgia. It's not something that is hugely advertised in any sense of the word. It's a little out of the way, Andersonville. But when you go, they have the camp that was there and how overcrowded it was. And they would tell you that, the amount of people that were in a very, very tight area, and it was in the thousands of people died there. I believe that the man who ran the camp was actually hanged after the war for war crimes after the Civil War, because of how horrible the situation was there. There were not only the abuse of the Union soldiers there, and you have to understand that obviously the Confederacy did not have a lot of food to feed their own people at the time, so they weren't using a lot of food to feed the the Union soldiers in this internment camp. So a lot of them died of starvation and yellow fever and all kinds of horrible diseases while they were interned there. And there were also gangs of Union soldiers inside the camp that would take advantage of new members and steal their clothing and just to try to survive. So horrible conditions, and all these stories are there for you to learn about. But the energy there, I went to Andersonville the first time by myself, which was a mistake. I had never been there, didn't actually know anything about Andersonville when I went, and got to Andersonville. It's on a long road back in the middle of nowhere when you get there, and I was the only car there when I got there. There were no other tourists there, nobody there. At the time, I don't know what it's like now, but you didn't have to pay to get in. You just kind of walked in to the park that was open, and you go into the camp, and well, first of all, when you go there, there's this little creek that ran through there, and there's a warning for copperheads at this little creek. So be careful if you go. But and rattlesnakes, I think. But you have to be very, very careful if you're a medium there, because the energy is so bad. I've never felt energy like I have at Andersonville, and I've been to Gettysburg, I've been to Valley Forge, I've been to some places that that have energy that's challenging to work with, but Andersonville by far for me has been the worst as a medium. So if you are a medium and you go there, please protect yourself before you go. And if you do go there, again, please go there with reverence. It's not a place that you want to take children and bounce a beach ball off of. There are a lot of souls who died in these places, and there's still a lot of sorrow associated with that location. So please make sure that you are cognizant of that, and go to these types of places with respect and reverence, because the people who lost their lives in these places do deserve that, and do deserve our respect in a lot of ways. So I think, let me see if anybody had any cards that they want me to pull real quick here. Get back into Facebook. And so I don't see anybody that needs any cards pulled. So I'm not going to do that. So I won't do that this evening. But if you do in the future, let me know. Happy to maybe do that just on air. If you need a quick reading or something, we'll go ahead and do that. I can't think of anything else from the family perspective, other than when I stayed at my brother's house one time. I'm going to end tonight on a funny story, I think. And I can't remember if I told the story or not, so bear with me if you've heard it before. But there was a hurricane, and I took Mark had his mom, and they took another car, and I had the dog, and we took another car to evacuate town. I don't remember the name of the hurricane. We have so many we've evacuated for. But during this one, we went to Montgomery, Alabama to spend and ride out the hurricane there. And afterwards, trying to get back with the dog was going to be challenging, because it's hard to find a place that will accept animals and stuff when you're traveling. So I actually decided to go up to Ohio and spend a week with my family while the roads and people were trying to get back into Florida. And when I did that, I got up to my brother's house, and I've been to my brother's house numerous times. And I walked in with the dog. It was kind of late at night. My sister-in-law works at a university. My brother is a school teacher. So they get up early in the morning. And I walked in the house, and right away, there was, I felt something in the house, and I'd stayed at this house numerous times, but never felt anything. And when you walk in the front door, there's a bedroom. The guest bedroom was right off to the right-hand side. There's a set of stairs that goes up, up, I guess, right above, right when you walk in the door, and then the living room, dining room, and kitchen, everything else off to the side. So, but there's a bathroom is underneath the stairway. So I kind of put the stuff in, got the dog situated, and as I walked out to go to the bathroom to take a shower, there was a little lady sitting up at the top of the stairs in a rocking chair. And she just kind of staring through the balustrade down at me, just kind of looking at me. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And walked into the bathroom, and took a shower, did my stuff, came back out. As I walked by, I kind of glanced up, and I said, look, I'm too tired. I can't deal with this today. Please, if you're here, come see me tomorrow, or come to me in my dream state. I'm happy. Sure enough, the next day, I was with my brother and my sister-in-law, and we're having corn on the cob. I got halfway through an ear of corn, and started getting messages. And I told my brother, it's like, you have a piece of furniture. You have furniture in this house that's not yours. He said, that's absolutely true. Friends of ours are moving, and they brought some furniture over here to kind of store here while they're in process of moving. So I said, there's chairs. You've got a chair someplace. And he said, yeah, we have a rocking chair. It's at the top of the stairs. I said, there was a little old lady in a rocking chair. My brother has never seen me do what I do this work before. Never seen me do a reading. Has never been around when I've done one. And he said, what do you mean? Said there's a little lady, and I described her with she had curlers in her hair, and she was wearing this kind of little pseudo blue bonnet on her head, and a blue nightgown that was long, as down to the floor, just staring at me. And described her, and they both, and my sister-in-law and my brother, looked at one another, and they said her name. I won't say it publicly. They said her name, and apparently I didn't know, but apparently they've been tending her grave for 24 years since she passed. But she came through, and she wanted to talk about a variety of things. So she kept saying Snickers, 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 Snickers. I'm like, so I asked my sister, like, what is Snickers? And she said that her dog's name was Snickers, and her Snickers had passed, and she was with Snickers. So, there's just some other things. She talked about a necklace she had that somebody kind of took in the family and maybe shouldn't have. She was supposed to be buried with it. And some other things that she brought up that were funny in a way that they had never seen this happen. Unfortunately, one of my nieces walked in during this conversation and was afraid to go back upstairs. Her room was upstairs where this rocking chair was. But I assured her that she just came in to visit because she knew that I was going to be able to receive her and give the message. So that was kind of that story. That was pretty funny. And my brother now is a little bit, now understands what I do. He can't do what he's not one of those people who has any of this ability. But it was funny for them to see what I do. And hopefully I was going to go up and speak at their church. And hopefully, if you're watching this, Rick, happy to do that anytime if you like. Other than that, I think what we'll do is end for today. I apologize again for the change in schedule, but that couldn't be avoided. To everyone that is dealing with the hurricane going up the northeast, please stay safe, and I hope you get your power back soon. I know several people that have contacted me today that don't have power, so I hope you get your power back on soon. And everybody, please, please, please stay safe, wear a mask, social distance, do what you need to do so that we can get this country back where we need it to go, so that we can all go back to living somewhat normal lives sometime in the near future. Love you all. Have a great evening, and thank you for watching, and we will see you soon. Take care.